everybody, and welcome to the Canadian Podcow. My name is Sarah Sash, out here in beautiful, freezing cold British Columbia, and I'm here with my co-host, Andrew Campbell. Hey, Andrew.
Hey, Sarah, it's freezing cold in BC in December? How stunning!
We can't resist talking about weather.
Oh, we can't. Although, so I actually want to. Can you just back up a little bit, because that sweater you have on is amazing. So let's. Oh, there's cows on it. My mind is even blown. I saw the Christmas lights. It says "Merry Christmas" underneath it, and then there are Christmas trees and cows.
And at the bottom there is
and then udders.
Even a row of udders.
There's a row of udders under. Oh, where do you get such a fine piece of craftsmanship in a sweater like that?
You can order online from PEI, Cow's Creamery. Yeah.
Cow's Creamery. I see. I should have guessed that. Cow's Creamery does have all the cool stuff. So, I mean, it gives it away when you have a fantastic Christmas sweater like that. But, like, holiday planning, like everything's going well on your end?
Yeah, I think we're finally almost getting to the part where we're like almost ready, and then boom, it's all going to be over. So how about you?
Well, my wife Jess and I, we went shopping last week. It was lovely. We made our list. We're like, wow, I think we're almost done. And then at breakfast today, we're like, oh yeah. And now we're kind of in panic mode. So once again, we're doing some last minute shopping this week. That's where we're at.
Fun times. Well, we're definitely looking forward to the holiday season in the barn as well, as you will be. I know even though we both have robots, we all get to spend a little bit of time out there. I have to say that managing a dairy farm with robots during the holiday season is actually kind of a highlight for me. We've got some nice beverages out there. We're ready to enjoy things with the family. My kids wear Santa hats, so I can look forward to seeing how your first robot Christmas goes, Andrew.
That actually sounds like a great way. I need to start making notes, I think. What should I do in my first Christmas in the new barn? But that's for another day. We have too much to talk about today, Sarah.
So we're all in this business because we love our animals. We love producing delicious quality milk. But we're also in business, let's face it, to make money and to be sustainable and profitable.
Well, absolutely, Sarah. And today we thought we certainly wanted to reach out to an expert to figure out what are some of the secrets to profitable milk. That's the title that I want you to remember, Sarah, because certainly in the current economic context, it's vitally important to look at all the tools and techniques available to dairy farmers.
And we're pretty lucky, actually. There's a workshop being offered by Lactanet on this very topic in early 2023. So today, we're offering you a preview of the Secrets to Profitable Milk, Lactanet's upcoming workshop that you can actually look into signing up.
And that is a great segue to our guest here on the Canadian Podcast.
Our guest has a master's degree in agricultural economics from McGill University and a PhD in agricultural economics from the University of Kentucky. He has more than 17 years of experience in agricultural economics for various organizations in Canada and the United States. He is now an agroeconomist for Lactanet. Simon Jetté-Nantel, welcome to the Canadian Podcow.
Thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Yeah, thanks for joining us, Simon. This is going to be a really interesting discussion when we talk about the workshop that Sarah mentioned in that Secrets to Profitable Milk. That's always a topic I love to hear about. But I want to take a step back and maybe take a bigger picture outlook here, because we did do an episode earlier in the year that kind of was about the economic outlook for 2023. And there were a lot of big question marks that I think a lot of farmers in general, but obviously dairy farmers in that, I guess the big thing is there's just a lot of question marks going into the new year. From your perspective, where do you think we stand now, and what are some of the challenges going into 2023?
Yeah, well, that's I wish, like just about any economist, that had the answers to all those questions, but I think that's the key. There's a lot of uncertainty, but one thing we know is that there was a pre-2022, and now, like after 2022, things are different. There was a shift. Yes, we can talk, and I'm sure you've heard a lot about feed costs, about input costs that have gone up, and where there's increasing level of uncertainty regarding those. And then there's a labor shortage. I'm sure like everyone, you've talked about it and you've heard about it. That's going to be around for a while. And we have an aging population, and we hear our governments talking about immigration, but there's no real quick fix to that. But the real shift happened because of the interest rate, and that's a big discussion. How long will those rates, or are they still going to go up? We had a recent hike of 0.5 point in previous weeks. And now the question is there going to be still more increases in that rate over the next few months? And most people are saying no, or maybe small ones. But then the bigger question is also when that's going to start coming down. And like any other economist, I don't really have the answer to that. Some people are talking about a year, some others about 2 years. But to me, like it's we have to start thinking differently about our management in some certain aspects, because what seems clear is that with all those shifts in the interest rates, is that when it comes down, it's not going to go back to 2% or something like that some farmers have experienced on their mortgages. It's probably going to go down. I mean, the target is 2% as the bank rate, which means probably more something like 4%, 4 to 5% for borrowers. So I think we have to get back to that. And as I said in other venues, it's the last 10 to 15 years that were abnormal with such low rates. And farmers may not be used to that. Just like I was talking with some financial advisors that are they have 10 years of experience in their job, but they have never worked in the market like what we're getting into right now. So we have to get used to that, and that's asking for a little bit of a tweak, I think, in our management.
So in that context, can you talk to us about why Lactanet felt it was important to hold a workshop on the secrets to profitable milk? Like, what drives that decision? I mean, you've kind of started to answer that already, but a little bit of the reasoning behind it.
Well, because we have that secret. Those secrets. No, I'll disclaimer right away. We don't necessarily have the secrets. There's a lot of different recipes to be profitable in the dairy industry. No, I mean, the idea was like the context itself, it's challenging in many ways. And in years past, we've tended to have workshops that focus on very specific aspects. Whether it was, feed margins, or whether milk quality, or, those type, specific workshops. And we wanted to have something a bit broader to bring management questions, like broad management question on the table, and to allow our people to be able to discuss of those broader, more like strategic management type of issues, and see how that links. I mean, the whole challenge within the workshop that we are proposing is to actually bridge economic indicators with more technical stuff, more your day-to-day, your operational, to try to make sense of all that. How can your economic indicators and benchmarks guide you in implementing some changes that you will see in your day-to-day, and try to bridge the two? Too often, you meet people, you come across people that have a very deep knowledge of some areas, some technical aspects of dairy production, but then it's always a bit of a challenge to link it tightly to the economics. So that's the exercise that we're kind of proposing, and we think that the current context is lending itself perfectly for that.
So then when you do talk about those broad management strategies, if we break down maybe a few of them without giving too many of the secrets away here, but certainly when it comes to, you mentioned it, a little earlier when you talk about like feed costs and just like overall expenses. I mean, we've seen such a dramatic rise over the last couple of years. When we talk about some of those inflationary pressures on the expense side, like, do you see that kind of holding? Like, I mean, I don't want to give you a crystal ball that says when's it going up and down, but I think like one of those things that really, I wonder about is when I'm looking at the management strategies, like, is this the new world in terms of the dollars we're spending on the expense side?
Well, I don't know. I was just looking earlier on like the USDA forecast, and the good news is they think that corn prices and soybean meal prices are going to come down a little bit over the next year, which would be good news. How much can it come down? Well, that's a good question. It depends on production costs of soybean and of corn themselves, which we know with the price of fertilizer. That's an open question. What's going to happen to that? And one thing we know is that labor is not going to go down anytime soon. So those costs are built in and will probably stay. But all the other ones, when it comes to fertilizers, fuels, and all those things, what I see. And to me, if I was managing a farm, that's the key thing I would remember is that the risk level is going to increase. Variability of those costs, of those prices. We've seen that on numerous charts that the variability of those inputs those input prices have increased over time, and they'll probably remain volatile. Which means like you might bring into the fold the importance of having contracts or some types of insurance on those prices if you want, whether it's storage, whether it's contracting out or something like that. Do you need that? Would you benefit from that? Those are questions that I think dairy managers have to ask themselves.
So when we think about profitability on the farm, and I know that's not always the peak of conversation, depends who you're talking to, but like any business, a farm needs to make a profit, but then there's all kinds of other factors that we have to be weighing as well. And trying to make sure that we're covering our costs and have that all under control. How do we juggle all this stuff? I mean, we want to make sure our animal care is going well. We want to feed the girls what they need to be eating. We want to look after our employees. And it does start to really layer on the things that we're looking into and trying to keep on top of during this time of, like you mentioned, kind of uncharted waters.
Yeah.
What can we do to get through this?
Well, that's the key thing, and that's exactly what we want to talk about. One of the things I want to mention right out is that the workshops, we really want them to be kind of a group discussion. There's going to be myself involved in those workshops as the economic expert, and we're going to have some advisors, farm advisors that have years and years of experience as well, that are more knowledgeable on the technical side, and we're going to have 10, 12 different producers sitting at the table as well, at the virtual table, I should say. And the idea is to have a discussion about that, because there's not one secret. But as you mentioned, there's a lot of different layers. Sometimes we focus on the operational side. Sometimes we have, I just talked about purchasing contracts and all the relationships, which to me is becoming more and more important. How do we manage business relationships with people that are doing custom work for us, with landlords from whom we're renting, employees you just mentioned. We have co-owners, more and more businesses, there's multiple owners. It involves a lot of different business relationships. We have to learn how to manage that. So that goes to HR, but business relationship in general. And there's the financial aspect too. So there's a lot of different layers. And one of the key things is, you cannot just focus on one of them. From time to time, you see people that are doing really well, and I've seen both extremes. I've seen people that were good. They had a professional career as financial managers. They're good at that. They come onto a farm, they take over, whoops, it starts slipping into the barn because some technical aspects going off. And you see the other side where people are very good in the barn, but they don't focus enough maybe on the other aspects. So it's trying to reach a balance. What we are finding out is that in order to be top level in terms of profitability, and you mentioned there's not just profit. As an economist, my counter argument is that you always need a certain level of profit to achieve your goals and your mission, whatever those are. The level of profit might differ, but if you want to expand, if you want to innovate, oftentimes you need more profit to sustain that growth and to sustain transfers and things like that. But yeah, I mean, in order to be on top level in terms of profitability, it's not just having cows that produce milk. It's also about knowing how to manage your people, knowing how to manage your finance. All of them deserve some time. And within our group discussion, we will give some leeway to the group to kind of drive that discussion where they want to go. If they want to lean more on the human side of things and the labor side of things, more on the financial, delve a little bit on some technical aspects, we will let people drive that. Although we've kept one card in our hand that we absolutely want to talk about, and there's one topic that we reserve for ourselves.
Oh, shucks. I was kind of hoping you'd let that one out of the bag, Simon, but
it will come.
It'll come. Well, so when you talk about all this, like something comes to mind, and it's, obviously I'm very proud to be a dairy farmer, and that's what I think of myself, but there's obviously a lot of days I've got to think of myself as a dairy manager. And put that word kind of to the forefront maybe more often, and spend that time here in the office and do that type of thing. As dairy farmers, as you talk to dairy farmers, what are some of the key things that you think are really important for a person to shift their thinking a little bit to make sure that they understand the importance of that dairy manager responsibility, not just the dairy farmer part?
Yeah, and as I was just saying, you have to take it from the financial aspect. The human aspect is very important. I mean, as I mentioned earlier on to you guys, I've worked in the U.S. From 2015 to 2021, and when you start getting into a larger farm, there's more and more people involved, and the human aspect. I mean, at the end of the day, you can ask yourself, why are you so proud of being a dairy farmer? And I'm sure it's going to be more like human related or emotional elements that will come to the fore. And that's why we do things. And there's humans involved in all around your business. And so understanding the importance of that part and how to manage it is going to be key. But, you need to have a strategic view, a long-term view, and understanding how are your finance going? How are your people going? And then the technical aspect, the herd itself, the cows themselves. As one manager told me, is like, the day I realized that I was no longer myself managing cows, I was managing people who were themselves doing things for my cows, then that's when things started to go well for me as a manager of a larger herd. Now, not all the herds are there. Not all farm managers are there, but all farm managers are dealing with some labor issues and some financial issues. And in the current context, we've talked about the interest rate, we've talked a little bit about the labor shortage. We have to be able to address those and to be willing, to come to the workshop. You have to have a bit of humility to say, like, I think I can learn about this, and I think maybe, I can improve on some of those aspects, and have some openness to that, and the willingness to share some of the good things that you've done, and maybe some things where you've struggled a bit more, and that's what makes those group discussions very interesting.
It's interesting. I kind of fill this type of role on the farm to some extent, but I've never thought of myself as a farm manager. I deal with people and accounting and all of those types of the business, and that's how we've made it work for us. Is by kind of splitting it out and having someone separate on the team do that. But not everyone has that advantage. So it kind of depends what your family group is like and what people want to be involved in. But I have to say, sometimes when you're describing what the transition to becoming a farm manager is, it seems kind of like we're trying to farm unicorns here. In that everybody, for whatever reason you're in the industry, you're there because you enjoyed it, or because it's your family legacy, or because of all kinds of things. And it's really kind of changed now what the expectation is in order to be able to manage a business and do this all at once. Like, isn't there some single recipe you can magically give us that will let us succeed into the future? I mean, it's just becoming so increasingly complex. And I think for a lot of farms, that's a lot to digest.
It is a lot, and it is a lot. It's a big challenge, but to me, that's the key. I mean, we can talk about challenges all day, but comes with that a lot of opportunities. I mean, things are changing. To me, as I said, I think there's opportunities. I mean, right now, there's been some milk production, that's opened up, and so that opened up for some opportunities for growth for certain people. There's opportunities in terms of new technologies. There's opportunities also in terms of growing your business and growing the people around it. And so, to me, it's like we can look at all those opportunities. Is there a secret? When you ask just about anybody who has worked with dairy managers, what are the key or some of the common traits that you find in good managers? I just mentioned humility a little earlier on, openness, curiosity, and passion. If you put that all together, I mean, the best that I've seen, they're always asking questions. They're always open to new ideas. Doesn't mean that they will buy all of them and apply all of them. There's certain, but as one financial advisor told me once, you want to be on the cutting edge, not the bleeding edge. So it's sometimes it can be a fine line. But yeah, so yes, it's this openness, and that I think is key, and embracing the challenge. The economic context in which we are in now has changed. We do not have control over that. You won't be able to convince your lender to give you a 2.5% rate on your next renewal. That's not going to happen, not in 2023. And the milk price is what it is. So we really want to focus on what you can control, which is what's going on your farm. Yes, how you're managing your cows, are you feeding them, how you are managing your supplies and your inputs, your contracts, your people, and your finances. And those are all the areas that we want to talk about. I'm talking quickly about finances. We want to talk about asset management. And to me, maybe if there's one secret for 2023 and probably 2024, at least anytime before the interest rates will start dropping, is being smart with your assets. We see in the data that we have, the financial data that we have access to, that the top tier, most profitable farms, they manage their assets a bit better than anybody else. So they don't need as much investment to crank out the dollar of revenue, which means that their barn is full, that they're using their equipment to capacity, that, there's nobody sleeping there in terms of assets and equipment. They don't have pieces of land that are not providing good yields and things like that. So learning how to manage your assets, I think, is going to be a key point in the 2023-2024 context.
Well, certainly, Simon, we just need to take a quick break because we, as good podcast managers, also want to be on the cutting edge, not the bleeding edge. So we are going to take a very short break with our sponsors. We'll be back with Simon Jetté-Nantel from Lactanet in just a second.
As a chef, I like composting because it gives back to the earth. Hey, Aaron, how do dairy farmers help protect the planet?
On my farm, I compost manure. This helps reduce the carbon footprint of milk production. Plus, manure makes for richer soil, which can help grow crops.
So it's like the circle of life.
Yeah, We're working towards a more sustainable future. I'm in. Are you?
I'm in.
That's Dairy Farming Forward. Dairy Farmers of Canada. Net zero by 2050.
And we're back with our agri-economist at Lactanet guest. Simone, you were just actually talking about asset management, which is kind of a great segue. And I want to stay on this subject because I think, when a farmer is looking at their assets right now, and thinking, particularly as interest rates move up, the dynamic changes when it comes to, how and what do we want to acquire in assets, over the next, couple of years. What are some of the main questions we should be asking ourselves before we do go out and write that really big capital check, for an asset?
Well, to me, the first thing is even before we talk about acquiring new assets, you have to look on the farm and say, do I need to own all of those assets? And the question, why I'm asking that is that given the previous economic context, when you were paying 2% on loans, it didn't cost that much to have a bit more assets maybe than what you needed, or the ownership costs were not that high. But nowadays, those ownership costs have gone up tremendously. And so you have to ask yourself, do I need to have all that equipment? Whether it's in the barn, out the barn, in the field, do you need to own all of that? Do you need to own all the pieces of land that you have? You need to put all that in questions. And oftentimes, the answer might be yes. But if you find some assets for which you're like, well, maybe not, maybe we could do things in a different way. There's some form of co-ownership of assets, or you could do custom working or things like that. And if you're open to that, if you have some possibilities there, I think now is the time to look into that. So ask yourself, do you need to own all those assets? That's the first question. Then for all those assets, as you said, no, I think I really need to own and control those assets. Then the questions is, are they underutilized, or are they utilized to their maximum? Because remember, they're costing you a lot right now to own them. So you have to ask yourself, am I doing the most out of the assets that I have? I've already had, producers come to our staff and ask, would I be better off doing three milkings a day just to, try to get more out of my herd, out of my barn, and out of my equipment? And those are the kind of questions that we need to ask ourselves in the current context. And once you've done that, once you've done kind of some cleaning up, if you want, in terms of all of the assets that you own, then you can start asking yourself, okay, where could I invest and how, and plan that accordingly, which means taking the proper time to do your budgeting and your planning for new assets. But right now is a good time to think about that more seriously. And honestly, I cannot wait for the workshop to start to hear what producers have done, because I'm sure producers naturally have already started to think about that. I'm really eager to see what they came up with, what kind of good tips they're willing to share, and what kind of situation we can help them with.
So thinking about the production side for a minute, what about feed management? We know that feed is one of the biggest expenses we have on the farm. You've got to be managing what you're buying and what you've grown and what you have in inventory. There's some risk management involved. What's at stake with feed management?
There's a lot at stake. Feed management is a huge chunk of your cost of production. All dairy farmers know that. And in the past, we've done entire workshops just looking at feed margins, how to improve your feed margins, with different rations, different strategies, But what we're going to do here, what we're going to aim for, is more like how keeping track of your feed margin can help you out. Some benchmarking can help you pinpoint the areas where you could you could improve. Should I pay for that, for those expensive supplements to get more milk out of my cows or not? Those are types of questions that we've been asking ourselves, but are worth revisiting in the current context, and how the continuous benchmarking can help you in that. Benchmarking also involves how much you've paid for your different inputs, different feeds. And so, as you said, managing risk there, is it worth it to have a contract, or is it worth it to have more storage in some cases, to be able to buy with larger volumes, get some discounts there. Those are all going to be part of the risk management questions and issues that we actually want to put on the table and talk openly about.
And in the Canadian context specifically, we've also got quota management to consider. That's got to be part of the equation. If it's mismanaged, are there economic consequences? I mean, that doesn't even feel like a question, but what would be the economic consequences of quota mismanagement?
Well, obviously, it goes back to, I was just talking about asset management. And one of the big assets we have is quota. So therefore, you want to get the most out of it. And surprisingly, for a number of reasons, we have producers that are not able to fulfill all their quota. And then depending on which provinces you're in, you have some mechanism to either rent it out or to, get your money's worth out of it. But it's not in every province. And so it's worth exploring, how to best manage the possibilities that you get out of the quota that you have, including the additional days that we got, and including, the quota that was just allocated recently. So how can you strategize to get the most out of it, even if in some cases your barn might be already full, or, you might be facing other constraints. So how can you try to make the most out of it? Because obviously we've calculated, for a farm of 100 kilos of quota, if you're not filling it by 1%, it's $8,000 that you've left on the table. So it's not insignificant.
So then, Simone, when we talk about the actual workshop, give me an idea. It sounds like this is a fit for every dairy farmer. Do you see that? Is this a fit for every dairy farmer in the country?
Just about, I think so. Yes, because your top farmers, as I mentioned earlier on, the most profitable farmers, those are doing the best. They're the most curious, and they're usually open. They want to share, and we certainly welcome them, because I have years of experience, and I know I will be learning a lot during every workshop. And so I think even the best managers will also learn a lot. They will also have the opportunity to share some of the good things that they're doing. We also have farmers, as I was mentioning earlier on, that are really good in terms of technical performances. And, their cows are producing lots of milk. They have good, milk quality, but maybe for some reasons, in terms of economic performance, in terms of profitability, they might still have some fine-tuning to do. And so whether it's with the human side, the financial side, or asset management side, I think they can probably pick up a few things from coming to our workshops. And so, as you mentioned, it's open to everyone. And the key thing is that in a moment of crisis, or in a crunch, like where I think we will be in 2023, it's often a good time. It pushes you. It's challenging you to find ways to do things better. And if you find a way to do things better, if you can shave off 50 cents or $1 per hectoliter in terms of your cost, that will stay with you for 2, 3, 5 years, 10 years. It will stay with you over time. So it's going to be an enduring profit gain that you will realize there. And sometimes that's the silver lining of those crunch times.
I love your mindset here, and you're really bundling this up as a growth opportunity rather than a challenge right now. So if people are interested in registering and taking advantage of that, what should they do? Where can they find the information?
Well, you can, any of our Lactanet staff will have information about that. Otherwise, you can come to our website, lactanet.ca. And you should be able to find the information there about our workshops. You'll find that also a number of news outlets and medias directed at dairy farmers. So we have workshops. We have actually two different types of workshops. The one we just talked about today. The other one is on rearing strategies and rearing costs. That could also be of interest to some people. And also, when you come in, as I mentioned, the only thing that you need to have coming in is some thirst for growth and some humility and some openness to share experience and taking ideas from others. That's the only requirement. Now we will also provide all the participants with a way to benchmark themselves. So we're going to send a link with an opportunity to fill out a form that will give you, like, if you don't know your cost of production already, which is a key for improvement, knowing your cost and being able to benchmark yourself, we will provide a tool that will allow you to do some of that before you come into the workshop, so that you have a picture of where you stand compared to other farmers from across the country.
Well, Simon Jetté-Nantel, thanks so much for joining us on the Canadian Podcast today, and really good luck with the workshop. It sounds like a great opportunity for dairy farmers. Thanks.
Thanks to you guys, and I hope to see you and Andrew and Sarah there in the next few months.
Thanks, Simone. I'll be signing up, I think. It sounds fantastic.
Well, Sarah, that definitely is a lot to think about when you think of, like, not just necessarily secrets of profitable milk, but I think what I take from that is just a lot of the things that I think we know we should be doing, but are we doing it right? Like, what do you think of all this?
I think it sounds great. I'll admit I heard about the sessions prior and heard the title, and I was like, oh yeah, okay, what are they going to tell us? And I have to say, after speaking with Simone, I'm pretty encouraged to sign up. I feel like it would be great. I've often wanted to be part of a peer group, or like doing something where we're talking and having conversations about on-farm management strategies. And I think this sounds like a great opportunity. So hopefully they get some good turnout to the session.
Well, and really, like, when he said that he's got the one thing that he wasn't going to tell us, as that, like, it makes me think too, like, well, what is that one thing? I better sign up too.
But there's just one thing.
If there's just one thing, but I think you're right. Like, when you talk about that broad spectrum too, just in terms of, all that management, I think it's going to be, I think it sounds like a great workshop and a great opportunity in such a great time for taking that.
It really does.
All right. Well, certainly, if you have any questions on this episode or suggestions for other episodes, please do not hesitate to reach out. Sarah and I would love to hear from you. We are on Facebook and Twitter. You just have to look for Canadian Podcow. You can also write to us. Our email is podcast@canadianpodcow.ca.
Thanks, Andrew, and thanks to our guest, Simon Jetté-Nantel of Lactanet. A big thanks to our production team, Bruce Sargent and Carl Bélanger, and to our sponsors, Dairy Farmers of Canada. And of course, thank you for listening to us. We will talk to you soon and hope you have a wonderful holiday.